The question was asked if it's a responsible job to take with as much trauma as I've been through. And that was in my last video that I made. And probably for my first hater, hey, it's okay, man. I enjoy it. And I felt like I should respond to that with a video. And the question is, and basically entails, is it responsible to take on another stressful job with as much stuff as I experienced, with as much trauma as I experienced, with having PTSD, anxiety? Does it make sense to go from the military to law enforcement, especially with as much stuff as I've been through? And part of me is like, you know what? Leave it alone, maybe comment back, whatever. But another part of me is like, this is what this platform is for, is to maybe educate someone that doesn't understand. And there's nothing wrong with any kind of questions. I welcome questions. I welcome all questions. And I feel like I'm a person that can help explain to someone that doesn't understand. And to me, being in law enforcement for about 3.5 years now, and being ex-military for 13 years, I'm in a position to do so. So, background, military 13 years. The last 10 a bit was Special Forces. And when I got out in 2018, I tried the civilian life. Got a job after a couple months and was working for a plumbing and heating company because I wanted to try and flip some houses. I've flipped a couple houses before, but I really wanted to get into it, so I wanted more knowledge about how to do so. So worked for a plumbing and heating company, and this was my first exposure to civilian life and my first exposure to what people thought about military guys and guys that might have PTSD or have issues. Sitting in an interview, I was talking to the employer, and he saw my resume that I was Special Forces. He kind of just stopped, took a breath, looked at me, and I could see that he was concerned. He's like, "You're not going to shoot up the place, are you?" And I'm like, is that what people think about people that were in the military? I laughed and I was like, no, you don't have to worry about that. In my head, I'm thinking that's a stupid question, but I'm not going to tell my future employer that. Anyways, long story short, with that job, only lasted a couple months because I realized my body was more broken than I thought. I got out pretty broken, jumping out of airplanes, and Special Forces training was pretty hard on my body, as you might expect. So I stopped doing that job. It was destroying my legs. My legs were already messed up. My feet were already messed up. Got done doing that. I was like, maybe I'll do the college thing. And so did the college thing, did that at the university. Did that about 2 years. Quickly got bored, quickly got frustrated with people that I was surrounded by, with the atmosphere. And I know it's high school part two. These kids, they're living like they're high school, and their first exposure to being an adult. So they're running crazy, which is fine, totally understandable, but that's not me. And then I started realizing I'm gonna be working with people like this. And it started bothering me. The way people took life, to me, they took it for granted, right? I've seen terrible shit in Afghanistan, and becoming a man real quick in the military, you grow up real quick. And I feel like I was still surrounded by kids, and it was annoying. So I was struggling with that, and college was easy. College is easy. I mean, I was on Dean's List the whole time I was there, right? So it was stupid easy. And I think it's with my background, the discipline that I had built through the military, that made it easy. But nonetheless, it was easy. Then I started getting frustrated. And I was headed down a path that I didn't like. I was drinking more. I was working out all the time, but I was also drinking all the time. Not getting drunk, but still not dealing with my issues. The only way I was dealing with my issues was drinking. Also, another thing, the higher you go up in the military, the longer you've been in, the higher you go up, the higher ranking you go up, the more advanced training, more specialized you are. When you get out, the harder you fall. And I struggled tremendously. It took a toll on me. When I was in the military, you walk around, people see a Green Beret. You know, I earned that, right? I went through a shit ton of training, and I earned people's respect from my uniform and the way people saw me. And when you get out of the military, you're not walking around wearing a Green Beret. You're not walking around wearing Special Forces long tab. You know, you don't have a rank on you. And being 13 years in the military, jumping out of the civilian world, it was a culture shock to me. No one knew who I was. No one gave a shit, which they shouldn't, you know, but it was something I was still getting used to. They say, and I say they, but I've heard a lot of people say, veterans, the first 2 years to get out of the military are the hardest 2 years. That's when people struggle the most, they drink the most, they shut down. I made previous videos about how people shut down, how they feel like they can't relate to other people, and you isolate yourself more than ever before because you're surrounded by people that don't understand. But the reason why I went into law enforcement is because there was another law enforcement officer that I met that I learned was military. He was ex-Navy. I'm not holding it against him, you know. No, nobody's perfect, but I reached out to him. I was like, hey man, what do you think about law enforcement? Did it help you? And he told me, and it still resonates with me to this day. He said it saved his life. And I was like, all right. And he goes, you think about joining? I was like, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not liking this college thing, and I'm afraid if I graduate college and get out into the civilian world, it's not gonna be any better. He's like, you should apply. Maybe apply. I was like, all right, cool. I'll think about it. And then later on, I think the next day, he messaged me back and he said, well, we are accepting applications now, but the deadline is in like 2 days. So I had to shit or get off the pot real quick. Really no time thinking. Have I ever thought about being in law enforcement before? Absolutely not. I never thought or dreamed, hey man, law enforcement's for me. You know, I want to pull people over and give them tickets. Hell no. Hell no. So, you know, I knew I could do it with what I've been through. I was like, well, if I don't like it, it's not like I signed a contract where, like the military, where I have to stay in X amount of years. So said fuck it, dropped the packet, and did a PT test the next month, crushed it, and joined, you know, law enforcement and went through the academy and blah, blah, blah. What I get from being in law enforcement is that sense of camaraderie that you miss in the military. And that's probably the most obvious. And when I talk to people that I joined, when I was first joining law enforcement, people are like, why are you doing that? Like, you already have your issues. You've already served your country. Why put yourself through that stuff again and again and again? And at first, I couldn't really answer that question. You know, I kept telling them I miss the camaraderie feeling. I miss the sense of purpose that you had in the military. And I miss serving. I miss serving a cause greater than myself. Because I was willing to die with my brothers. And I miss that feeling. Now that I've been in law enforcement for 3.5 years and been on, you know, some bad calls and seen some stuff, now I can answer a little bit more thoroughly. It's man, it probably saved my life, to be honest. And there's a lot of days I struggle with it. I'm not that guy that likes doing a lot of the stupid calls, but it's part of the job, right? I'm not a big traffic stop guy, but the camaraderie, that is a big part of it. And it's deeper than just being around a bunch of like-minded guys and gals they're used to in the military. In the military, you're used to suffering. You're used to pain. And I think as a human being, we're meant to suffer. We're meant to go through pain. That's how we grow, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. And when you're surrounded by people and you're going through shit, you're going through hard times, you're going to a bad call. There's people that are dead, there's carnage, if it's a car accident, whatever it is. And you experience it with other people, you can relate with them, where you can't do that with a civilian. And you form a bond with that person, with those people. And you can't do that with anyone else. There's not a lot of jobs out there that have as much trauma as law enforcement, first responders, firefighters, stuff like that. But law enforcement, it was my coping mechanism, and I can honestly say I've gotten better mentally over time. And I was a little skeptical at first too, you know. I have these issues. I have anxiety of just being out in public. I hate being out in public. But sometimes when I go to a call, especially if I know it's a bad call, the calmer I feel. It's strange. It's like things slow down for me. And I know it's because of the military, and I know it's because of what I've been exposed to, and I'm used to high levels of stress already. And I feel like if I'm not constantly pushing myself and pushing my body, then I'm suffering. And I feel like a lot of veterans struggle with that. They don't have that thing that keeps them busy, the thing that pushes them to the next level. And law enforcement does that for me. When I'm going to a bad call and I know I have my brothers and sisters there, I get excited. I want those bad calls, and I have to be the first one there. That's the thing I miss. That's the biggest impact that has on me to this day. And also, to go back to that question, it was asked, does it make sense to be in a job where there's so much trauma, after I've been through so much trauma? And my thing is, everyone that's a cop and first responders in general have some sort of PTSD. Should they quit because they have PTSD, because they've already experienced so much trauma? Or do you want someone that shows up that knows how to handle a high stress situation? Yeah, I'm messed up from the military, but I guarantee you I'm the first one there, and I know how to handle any situation. Most situations I can handle. And as much trauma as you go through, the more of a tolerance you build up for that next trauma. And compare, someone that has 20 years on a job as law enforcement or military background to a new cop that's fresh out of academy, that's never experienced any trauma in their life, that's never been affected negatively. They're the ones that are hesitating on the job. They're the ones that are afraid to go into a domestic situation. They're the ones that are afraid to go into an active school shooter. And that's where a lot of our society is failing, is men aren't pushed past the past the level of their comfort zone, and they struggle. So that's why law enforcement needs veterans, and that's why veterans need law enforcement. Law enforcement needs the experience that veterans bring, and veterans need law enforcement because it helps with our sanity. It keeps us at a place of zen, if you will. There's much more to it, man, but that's just a starter. And I can assure you that you don't want anyone else, if it's a bad call, you want that veteran there. If it's that's why they say veterans will stand guard of schools for free, because they missed the action, but they can also handle themselves, and they know they can handle themselves. So this is in response to the video, or the response to the comment. I welcome these comments. Like I said, check out my last video, and if you have any comments about that, go ahead and leave it at the bottom. But like I said, this is the platform to ask questions, and a platform for me to educate someone and try to help them understand why veterans or law enforcement do what we do. I'm not hating on anyone. I don't care if someone hates on me. I'm just telling you like it is. So if you got any more comments, got any more questions, I can make videos all day about this stuff. All right, so hit me up.